I don't know, so usually it's not that messy. Oh, that's one.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's Monday, May 18th, 2026 at 9 a.m. The MPO board meeting is called to order. Now I will ask Mrs. DeForest to confirm a quorum. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, good morning, Chair. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. DeForest. Next, Commissioner Cruz, Manatee County will provide the invocation and lead us in the pledge. Thank you.
All right, everyone standing. Please bow your head. Dear Lord, thank you for having us all here today and getting us here safely. Thank you for this beautiful day, and even more so, thank you for the much-needed rain we got yesterday. And as I was thinking about the MPO, I've been going through a Bible study for the book of Hebrews, and a verse stood out. It's Hebrews chapter 3, verse 4, which states that all houses are built by man, but everything is built by God. So let us remember that while we're focused on the tangible issues, the tangible items that will positively affect our residents and all of God's children, that at the end of the day, everything that's been bestowed to us, everything that we see and that we have, has been granted to us by the Almighty God, and all the decisions we make need to be considered in the light of what has been provided to us by our Lord, and let's have that be our guiding focus here at the MPO and in all things in life, so that we can provide a safe place for all of our residents, all of his children. And in God's name we pray. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Cruz. Next, we will have agenda item number 4, the Public Transportation Task Force. Oh, I skipped over public comment. Let me go back to public comment. We will now open the meeting for public comment, including comments on any agenda items. On the screen, you can see 4 ways for the public to provide input to the board. All comments received will be shared with the board members and made part of the public record. The meeting is being live streamed as publicly noticed and will be available on METV and the MPO YouTube page. Mrs. DeForest, do we have any public comment?
We have one public comment.
Okay. And the first person is, the only one so far is Pat Simmons. If you'd come forward and you'll have 2 minutes. Welcome, Ms. Simmons.
Good morning.
Good morning.
When asked people with disabilities in Manatee County if they could improve one thing that had to do with mobility, what would it be? And here's their top 5. Transportation, such as transit, parking, trails, accessibility. Number 5 is parking enforcement. Parking over sidewalks. I see this all the time. People pull into their driveways, fine, but they also park across the sidewalks, which limits not only people using mobility devices, but it limits people with low vision or that are blind who are trying to maneuver their way up the sidewalks. The next one was more beach accessibility. And the maps are great, but they're narrow. And once you get down to the end, that's it. It's like it dead ends almost into a curve because they can't get to the water number one. Number two, they can't turn around unless there's somebody with them to help them carefully turn around on the mat. There's also parking in access lanes, which happens all the time on private properties. Cluster drop-off spots, which I brought this up to you before, and a queue for 99 South.
Thank you, Ms.
And-
Simmons. The 2 minutes is up. Thank you. All right, having no further citizen comment and none came in by email or,
No, no further comments.
okay, thank you. So we'll move on. Next, we have agenda item number 4, the Public Transportation Task Force. First up is Manatee County. AJ, thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is AJ Lachima. I am the transit planner at Manatee County Area Transit, and I'm here to present to you our Manatee County Area Transit update. So our monthly ridership, it's pretty stable within the past year. Our ridership was low beginning of the calendar year, but has slowly increased as the year has gone on, and that is recently because we had to reduce some services and we're still experiencing some driver shortages. And then for the Veterans on Demand, it happens to be pretty popular still. So far we've provided over 3,100 trips since January of last year. The service is free to veterans. You can download the app on iOS or Android devices. Veterans are limited to 2 trips per day, and most of our scheduled services are done on the app, or veterans can call our office anytime between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday, to schedule service as well. Our Longboat Island on demand average trips have been 504 since 2 years ago in January. Cost per trip is about $29.68, and the passenger trips can cost anywhere between $3 to $6 depending on distance. And then our most popular service, our last side that we have here, is the Gulf Islands Ferry. It started in January of 2024, and since last January we have exceeded 75,000 trips. The first boat leaves the Bradenton Pier at 7:30 a.m. and service goes all the way until about 8:30 and 9 o'clock. We operate 2 boats Wednesday through Sunday. Pricing for ridership: $7 for adults, $5 for youth, seniors, and then active military. And it is free for any toddlers or seniors who are above 80 years old. And that's about it. Oops, go back. Any questions?
All right, any questions or comments? I know Mayor Chappie and I talked a little bit about this morning. Obviously, originates from downtown Bradenton, and the boats are full with the new boat that came in.
Correct.
And I'm saying this for my Sarasota friends out there, that it would be cool if we could go from downtown Bradenton, several stops in between, to downtown Sarasota at some point in the future, because we're looking at what we're doing is taking those trips off the road that, you know, the island's still going to get the people. It's just how they get there. And if they can get there without driving a car, we need to continue that. Mayor Chappie, I think it's been a great thing. Yes, sir. Mayor Chappie.
It's great. I was wondering whether you'd comment on the South Boat Ramp. It's my understanding they were putting the ADA stuff in last week. So I'm guessing they're going to start service to go to, just the beachgoers will be able to just go to the beach from Bradenton
Coquina,
downtown.
right,
Yeah, Coquina,
Coquina,
yeah. It's
right.
going to be great. So do you know what the timeline is? Is that going to be a week, 2 weeks?
I have I can get back to you on that with the timeline and stuff. I don't have specific dates on hand, but I'd be more than happy to follow up with you to get that answer.
Yeah, what I like seeing is when you're downtown and people walking from our parking garage to the ferry, you know, and people were worried, you know, even our council was kind of concerned about parking. There's not been one parking issue because people will walk a little farther to get to something that's that's fun. And you see them with their wagons, carrying their beach chairs and their coolers or umbrellas. And the new ferry is very fun to ride, and it's a nice ride. Still about a 45-minute ride, but it's a peaceful ride getting out there. And if you get in traffic, you could sometimes wait an hour or two. Then you have to find a spot to park. Then you have to go and then you have to get back. So the ferry has been a very successful thing, and thank you to Manatee County and all the cities working together to make that happen. And I know Mayor West, things are progressing possibly in the river to bounce back and forth across the river to keep people off our bridges, which will make a difference. So thank you for that. Thank you, AJ. All right, next is Sarasota County Breeze Transit Quarterly Report. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tamara Shells. I'm with Breeze Transit, Planning and Performance Manager. So first we'll talk about some ridership trends. The dark blue line represents a current fiscal year 2026. So you can see that we are performing higher than the previous 2 fiscal years. And you can also see that we're kind of following the typical trend in the winter months where our ridership increases. But actually in March, we did finish about 22% higher than we did in the previous time, or the same time in the previous year. And also, since this slide was done, we did look at our April numbers, and those reached about 245,000, so kind of following the typical postseason decline, but still remaining much higher than the previous 2 fiscal years. And in the first half of this current fiscal year, we are at 1.3 million rides. And this does include all our services. So this is the fixed route, the on-demand, and our Breeze Plus services. So if we look at the ridership by the service type, this has it broken down by those 3 services. We can also see those same trends. What we do notice is that our fixed route service makes up about 75% of our total ridership. And since the last few months, or at least since the beginning of the fiscal year, that share of the fixed route ridership has kind of been increasing, closer to about 80% of all our total ridership. And some of that is due in part to the increases we've had on the Siesta Islander, and then also the Bay Runner that we are now operating from, that was operated by the city of Sarasota. We did notice in April that we have experienced a few record days in ridership for our Breeze Plus services, so that is something that we'll be keeping an eye on those trends. Last time we mentioned some of the spring service changes that were going to come up, and those did take place on April 25th. And as part of those spring services changes, we also introduced our mobile fare payment system. So that launched on April 25th, and in the first 5 days of that, we had more than 255 passes purchased. I took a look at it for last Thursday, so looking at the first 20 days, we've already sold over 1,500 passes, and that about 96% of those have been single ride passes. We also do sell monthly passes through this system, and those have been increasing as well. That was about 310 unique riders that have been using that. Since it's launched, we have been seeing the upward trend in users for this application. So we're excited to kind of follow this and see how that makes riding transit easier for our public, since that was something that we had gotten lots of comments and requests for in the past. As part of that, we're also partnering with our local colleges to make it easier for them to control and manage how their students are able to access the free rides that is a benefit that they have. And basically, it helps the colleges kind of have a little more control over the eligibility. They're maintaining the database that has, the active students enrolled. So it just makes it a little bit easier for them to track who's using it, and makes it run more as the program was originally intended. And some of the other recent actions we've had, looking at our public outreach, we launched in April our first newsletter called The Current, and that had about 255 that were delivered electronically, and about a 40% open rate for those for that newsletter. And this basically is just a way for us to get our information out to more people in a different venue for them to interact with Breeze. And it also provides some of our service updates, any special announcements that we may want to share. We'll also share our ridership numbers and trends, talk about customer feedback. If there's any hot topics of interest, those will be included in there as well. And this will, the plan is to have this to be a quarterly newsletter. Another event that happened in April was Volunteer Appreciation Month. So our communications department for the county highlighted one of our transit ambassadors, and they put together this really nice video that highlights kind of what the transit ambassador does. And this has been a interesting program for us. It's beneficial not only to the riders, as they have someone there that can help make that experience easier for them and more comfortable for them, but it also gives us eyes on the buses and trolleys, and we get feedback from the ambassadors too about any concerns or questions or positive or negative feedback that we may get from the riders. So it was nice to see that highlighted on our communications. And that is all I have. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Michelle's questions. Yes, sir. Commissioner Stokes, and then Commissioner Sadiq.
Thank you very much for the report. I was wondering, have you guys been tracking South County, especially your Northport area? Because, population continues to grow year after year. It's not just all West Village as well in Park area, a lot of legacy. And there are areas of our city where we're not getting Breeze coverage. And I know we've been getting some community input concerned about is the possibility exists to see that service expanded down there. Are you tracking the numbers? Are we getting there?
Yeah, absolutely. Are you speaking for the on-demand service or any service?
Breeze mostly, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we are always looking at areas that we can expand the on-demand. We're looking at areas where it might be more feasible, looking at if it would be more feasible for an on-demand type service, or if fixed route would be a more efficient way of delivering service. But until there's more direction from the board, until there's more funding in place, perhaps looking into some types of partnership relationships, then that's what we're looking at in order to make that more possible. Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Sadiq.
Thank you, Chair. I just have two quick questions. There we go. Two quick questions about your trends. It's very good to see them. We're seeing them on our end too. Why do you think you're seeing the increases in ridership across all services? Mm-hmm. Is it more increased intervals? Better? I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm. Well, for different reasons. On demand helps with that. Once we introduced on demand, we've had a pretty steady increase in those services, and that has helped to boost overall ridership. Fixed route has been previously when we had the hurricanes and other storm events, it definitely negatively impacted ridership. And since then, we've just really seen much more of a rebound. It seems to have come back, but just at a higher rate. And things like the Siesta Islander has really been a driver for our ridership numbers. And then also I mentioned, bringing in the Bay Runner as well.
Got it. And the last question, where on the fixed route services are you seeing increases? Is that following more the development patterns with downtown redevelopment, or is it in the suburbs? I'm kind of curious. Where are you seeing the fixed route service ridership increases?
Right. Well, like I mentioned with the Siesta Islander is one area. I can't really say specifically with fixed route if there's been any noticeable increase in any particular area. I know 99 is always a strong driver. The route that goes between Sarasota and Manatee County. If there's any specific, I can't really say other than those main ones, the 99 and the Siesta Island Travel.
Got it. Thank you. That's all I have,
You're
Chair.
welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, appreciate it, Ms.
Thank
Shells.
you.
All right, moving forward, next we have agenda item number 5. First is the Florida Department of Transportation. Wayne.
Good afternoon, Chair. First order from me is to introduce David Scarpelli as our new MPO liaison for the Sarasota Manatee MPO. This has certainly been a year of change for the MPO, so we've got following along suit with that as well. And with that, I will hand it over to David.
Good morning.
Good morning. David Scarpelli, Community Liaison with FDOT. The only thing I really have to bring up is there's a public meeting that's happening for project State Road 776 from Merchants Crossing to Sarasota County line. That is going to be held on May 20th from 5 to 7 at the L.C. Quirk Library, located at 100 West Dearborn, Inglewood, Florida. There's also a virtual component, same night. That one's going to start at 6. And you can find the link on the project website. Any questions?
Questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anything else, Wayne? All set? All right, next we'll go to report MPOAC. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago in Orlando. Ryan will give some of the stuff, but one thing I'm just going to say about it, it's probably the most well-attended event in a while, and I think that's mainly for one reason. It's because the executive director, Amanda, is doing a great job, and she came from MPO last year, from the DOT last year into the MPOAC, and she's communicating well. She's really working with the state well, and I think some of the past angst with the state, we legislators that were trying to figure out what's the worth, which I think almost every one of us up here is very conservative, fiscally responsible, and this board now is showing why it's worth its weight in gold and what's happening. So at that point, I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll lead off with that note. The MPOAC meeting was, as Mayor Brown said, very well attended back in April. Yeah, Amanda's done a fantastic job. The budget's looking like it's in good shape. And it seems like all those conversations with DOT and how the MPOAC existed and why they existed are no longer of concern. I also wanted to briefly touch on that we were asked as an MPO, and I presented on behalf of the MPO regarding succession planning, and working with Dave on that process. It was also well received. A number of people reached out after asking about our process and our policies. So all in all, the MPOAC was a great meeting and something that we look forward to. We'll have a next meeting in July, and something that we'll continue to do the work. Secretary Perdue was also there and gave a nice speech for about 30 or 40 minutes and had some good feedback back and forth with electeds from around the state. So I do think the MPOAC is demonstrating why it exists and demonstrating its worth at a state level, and it's great to see that our partners at DOT see that as well. So that's what I had on MPOAC. I also wanted to touch briefly on advanced air mobility in front of you. I know we had some comments last time in front of you. You'll see a handout regarding the aerial network that's been brought forward by the state. So great news there. We're in phase 1A. It's connecting along the I-4 corridor. I also wanted to add that following not just much after a meeting the Friday after April 24th, we also had a conversation with SRQ at the airport and created a regional working group. The MPOAC is kind of going to be seen as an intermediary and liaison to make sure all agencies are invited to participate. We are working towards an MOU with the airport within the next 60 days, non-binding, non-financial, but simply stating that we're going to be working as a region to be at the forefront of this, and then preparing ourselves regionally. I think the technology itself is advancing at a very, very high rate. However, we will probably lag like anything when it comes to preparing the region locally. So comp plan amendments, land use, zoning ordinances, things like that related to having heliports and having these types of vehicles in our airspace, what does that look like locally? So that's a lot of the conversations that are being had. We're looking to the SRQ and the Airport Authority to kind of lead that effort as the hub within the region. But we will keep you apprised of the progress that we make related to AAM. I also wanted to point out a few other meetings. SCTPA, Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, that meeting will be June 5th from 10 to 12 p.m. in Auburndale. Mayor Brown will be presiding over that meeting, will be the, I would say, host, but really just helping guide the meeting. There'll be other regional topic discussions such as the regional benefit cost analysis tool, trail systems, AAM, all those conversations, and that will be done in concert as well with the Central Florida Planning Alliance. So great regional coordination happening here over the next month or so. So that's also good to see. Also, I have had some discussions preliminarily with Charlotte Punta Gorda MPO to the south. We've had some discussions about next January joint meeting. For now, we are working on reserving the Venice Community Center. It is changing hands, so they're not accepting formal reserves and reservations until October 1st. So we have our name in and looking to reserve that space for next January. However, they have expressed interest in potentially hosting those alternative locations both in our counties and Charlotte County. I said that would probably be a discussion best to have with all the board members there. I'm not going to speak for my board members on whether or not they would like to travel to Charlotte County. We will have that conversation in January of next year. So that is something that will be coming up. And lastly, I just wanted to briefly touch on our safety efforts. We try to make an effort to talk about safety at each and every meeting. We will see a presentation from our team regarding organizational safety culture, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about our next steps in looking at an integrated safety study. We're going to look at law enforcement, school education campaign, and then re-updating our entire crash assessment for the region. Safety remains not only a priority of the MPO, but FDOT as well. And it's our goal to continue to reduce serious injuries and fatalities on our roadway network. So we're putting forward a concerted effort to make sure that we're keeping safety at the top, and our team's doing a great job in executing that. So with that, I'll take any questions. A lot of just due diligence and administration today, but I'm certainly ready to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Vice Chair Mast.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say, Ryan, thank you. You have taken the helm, and you're doing a great job at driving the train, so keep up the good work. I will say there are some very specific things that I think this board needs to start delving down into, and I'll be very specific. When it comes to safety, I know there are a lot of concerns about e-bikes, and it is there are a plethora of reasons why I think we really need to delve into this, because I think it is becoming an increased safety issue for everybody who is on the roadways. And I'm not trying to say that I'm anti-e-bikes, but I think there is a time, a place, and we need to have a more regulated process put in place for everyone to remain safe. And so I think this board needs to start really delving into that and looking at what we can and can't do, best practices, because I do think that if we don't take that forward movement, I think we'll be caught very much behind the eight ball, so to speak. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I don't know if Councilwoman Coker wants to say anything about that as well.
I would.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I just had a resident in my ward just this past week that was hit on a sidewalk by an e-bike. So they aren't street worthy. They're not sidewalk worthy. I would like to put that as a priority to get it addressed, probably at the state level.
Yeah, and I think that legislation is being based, and I know it was passed to discuss how those accidents and traffic-related events are even reported, right? We struggle right now with e-bikes to designate them, to your point, at what speed is it no longer a bike or is it a vehicle? Yeah, those are all questions that I think need to be done legislatively to say, just reporting. We don't even know the ratio right now which bike-related accidents are being actually occurred that are e-bikes versus regular bikes, and those crash statistics for one. And two, correct, how do you instill those regulations? Right now they're kind of seemingly operating wherever they see fit within the roadway, and creating a lot of dangerous situations. So I certainly agree. That's something that the MPOAC would also be certainly useful and helpful in having those conversations, and that's something that Chair and myself will certainly bring up at the state level and go through conversations related to those, because it's evolved, I think, a lot quicker than anyone is prepared for. Like anything, technology is outpacing our ability to regulate. So we will certainly look at that going forward.
Commissioner Sadiq.
Thank you, Chair. Not to get at your safety presentation too much, I had a good time reading through the crash safety reports. Something I think the MPO, perhaps DOT, could weigh in on there are how can we enhance safety by putting a framework or looking at ways you can update or enhance design standards at the state, perhaps local levels, to accommodate autonomous vehicle systems. One of the biggest things there is it's a cool factor, certainly, to see cars driving themselves. Mine does it. But the safety thing is the important one, because they can catch things humans can't. Lane departures, obstacles in the roads, even at night conditions. The cameras are pretty advanced, and just camera-only systems, but the ones with LiDAR and camera are pretty impressive. Semis, I noticed the commercial vehicle trends are not as high as the other ones, so that's good, but I'd just be kind of curious to see with federal highways, with I-75, some of the other corridors, what can DOT and even MPO weigh in on to come up with some kind of framework, design standards, maybe even solicit technology ideas to see what are the things that those firms need to make their vehicles more operational on the roads. So just something to think about.
Yeah, and I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Wayne, but yeah, there are a lot of, we look at it from a regional TSM&O perspective. ITS, to your point, is preparation for those vehicles. Yes, once again, the private sector has outpaced what we've been able to deploy on our roadways and at the pace in which we can do that. Obviously, there are a lot of ITS and investments that are ongoing. I know Sarasota County, and as well, we're moving into Manatee County to make sure our boxes are upgraded to deal with CV and connected vehicle technology. Looking at it from a regional perspective, we have worked with MetroPlan in the past, and as well as our neighbors to the point in Orlando and Tampa, to look at just that, deploying certain technologies at scale across major arterials, interstate systems that can interact with one another, right? Because county lines, people don't typically care about when you're trying to travel. Really, it's making sure that we're aware that this technology can continually communicate across those county lines and across regions to make sure that your car works as anticipated, and that we, ourselves can anticipate those things, and not just in the car level, but some ITS technology deployed in the city of Sarasota, looking at early ped detection, extending crossings. All those things are very useful, as the vast majority of our bike ped related incidents occur at intersections. So those are all great comments and things that we're going to continue to work on as a region, but also at the state. I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything to that, Wayne.
Actually, I think you did a really good job on that one. The only thing I was going to bring up is that's a tough field to try to get your hand on. The technology changings that are occurring in that field are happening fast. We did have, as Ryan was saying, FRAME was a effort with the department to utilize connected vehicles and to provide information back and forth from set points to connected vehicles. And the department also has SunTrax, which introduces an environment for a lot of these new companies to come in, test their technologies in Florida in a safe environment that gives them a real world feel for what's happening out there. And I can say that there's been quite a bit of activity at the SunTrax location in checking these new technologies out. So we're definitely trying to keep our finger on the pulse of what the private sector is continuing to do within that field.
Thank you, and I'll just make a comment about where we saw an issue. We had our River Regatta, Palmetto and Bradenton this past February, and our River Walk has all the way in the Bridgeton areas close to 100,000 people, and we were having an issue on the River Walk with the e-bikes, and I think that's where it really came up, because during the normal time, the speed isn't as crucial, but when you have that many people, so our council and our chief is looking at it to what's going to go forward. One of the things you say the e-bikes. Well, that's just one of the factors. There's a gentleman that rides through our downtown with just a little wheel about this big and two little stand on the ends, and it flies. And he's trying to dodge in between people on the sidewalk. And it's just, for safety reasons, again, we want that alternate transportation. We just want to know that it's not going to be hitting somebody or causing harm to themselves. So I think that's very important. Yes, sir, Wayne.
So throughout the district. We attend multiple MPOs. Marco Island has got an ordinance that they have passed, which may be good for staff to reach out to the Collier MPO board member or board and see if we can get that information up to you, specifically dealing with e-bikes, primarily dealing with the speed of the vehicles that are done. For the department, there was a question that was brought up on that. The department is basically leaving a lot of the decision-making as far as what can be done on some of these pathways to the locals by passing local ordinances. But we certainly are available to offer assistance or information that we have available to you in those cases.
Thank you. Anything further? All right. One thing before I go to my chair report, I'll say it because we're in this. I agree with you, Vice Chair Mast, about Ryan. He actually, obviously, is just in his first couple of months, but he was actually giving the succession planning over at the MPOAC already. So we see how important all of us have dealt with, whether it's in personal business or in government, where when you have a top official, executive director leave, it's who you bring in. Do you search the country? Do you search locally? And, you know, I've always been, if the person's in the seat locally, that's who you want to try to get. Obviously, if they're not, but it's up to each organization, board, to really try to make that happen. And I think we were very lucky. You know, we had David succeeded the previous person, and then Ryan is as a young individual. I don't know if he has socks on today or not, but I know he's hiding.
Change the table covers.
The skirt so we can't see, but in a fun way for being such a young individual and stepping into this role. I think this board is very proud of you being there and stepping up. And I see it maybe a little more than others when we go to some of these meetings, but he's well respected amongst his peers and is a leader amongst his peers already. And that's what's good to see and understand. So keep up the good work. So I appreciate that. All right, moving into my report. First, I do want to just thank everybody for being here. And do we have any visiting members? They want to introduce themselves to us? I know we have one.
Is that a hint?
Yeah, that's you.
My name is Jim Bolt. I am the Vice Mayor of the City of Venice, and I'm here on behalf of the Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Everybody else has been here. In the audience, do we have any of our, any other elected officials or any individuals that serve on any of our boards? I see Mr. Landefeld out there and obviously Pat Miss Simmons at times. Yes, sir. You want to say your name?
Yeah, Rob Brown, Manatee County Planning.
All right, Rob Brown with Manatee Planning. And no relation. I mean, we got a lot of Browns up here, and we keep talking about that. But there. All right, well, we appreciate it. Thank you for being here and filling in for Mayor today. And welcome, everybody. All right, moving on. We will now move to item number 6, the consent agenda. Mr. Ryan Brown will read the title of each on the record.
Thank you, Chair. Consent agenda today is fairly straightforward. We do have our Sarasota Manatee MPO board meeting minutes from March 30th. Sarasota Manatee MPO committee appointment and reappointments, our transportation disadvantage TD trust fund grants for fiscal year 26 and 27, and then our fiscal year 26, 27, 28 UPWP, which was presented back in March, as well as the FDOT MPO funding agreement. Any questions on those, we'll be happy to take if you feel so fit.
Any questions? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve. All right. Who was the so moved? Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Stokes and a second by Vice Chair Mast. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, next is item starting with 7A, Transportation Improvement Tip Amendments presented by DOT.
David Scarpelli, FDOT Community Liaison. So a letter was sent to the MPO on April 28th to revise the fiscal year 25-26 to 29-30 Transportation Improvement Program. for project 452849-2. This project received federal earmark funds on 2024 for the construction phase of 51st Street West from 53rd Avenue West to El Conquistador Parkway. The PD&E and the design phases are needed prior to construction and have been revised in the FDOT 5-year work program accordingly. This major scope change must be reflected in the TIP accurately. Therefore, a formal amendment is needed.
All right, any questions or comments? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve this.
Second.
All right. I believe Councilman Smith and Commissioner Smith and then Sadiq, second. Any other questions? And this will require a show of hands. So hearing no questions, all in favor, raise your right hand or a hand. All right, unanimous. Thank you. I know, it's just a habit. Raise your right hand. All right, next is item 7B, Transportation Improvement Program TIP amendments provided by Nina Venter. Thank you.
Good morning, Nina Venter, MPO staff. So today we have the draft fiscal year 27 to 2031 Transportation Improvement Program. This is coming to you for approval. The process, the TIP is a federal requirement for all MPOs. It identifies our prioritized transportation projects and funding, and the MPO's priority projects that have our discretionary funds must be consistent with our 2050 long-range transportation plan. The process to start this transportation improvement program started with the 2025 project priorities, which we adopted in March of last year. So when we adopted the 2026 project priorities in March, it will inform next year's draft TIP. Since then, we've done some transit coordination to include the required information into the draft. We received the project information from FDOT on April 6th. We received confirmation from FDOT staff that all required elements and recommended elements are included. And we are now concluding a 30-day public comment period today for the draft TIP and bringing it to you for adoption today. We have received 12 total public comments on the draft TIP, so I did want to provide just a quick high-level overview of what we've heard. The major themes really were first tied to the growth and the development that the region has seen over the last few years. Some of the themes tied into mobility and congestion concerns, but also around environmental preservation, protection of our natural resources, natural hazards, specifically hurricanes, and then also ensuring that we have evacuation routes open and available for folks when we are in a state of emergency. We also heard specifically about roundabouts in intersections. One public comment commended roundabouts as an excellent mobility solution, but then there were also very specific asks for roundabouts, specifically US 41 at Orange Ave, Myrtle Street, and Martin Luther King Jr. Way, all three in the city of Sarasota. There was also a specific request for the county to look at Tuttle Avenue west of University Parkway, where there seems to be some queuing concerns, and then a specific call out for the Bradenton-Palmetto connector as well, which you'll hear about later today. And then lastly, I lost a slide. But then generally mobility and congestion concerns as well. There were three very specific comments. The one was called out by Town of Longboat Key staff that the State Road 789 multi-use trail program project, the PD&E, was missing from the draft TIP. Staff did confirm this. We worked with FDOT to get that project included into the draft TIP, so that has now been resolved. There was a very specific ask for Breeze Transit to consider going fare-free and to consider a new route on US 41 over to Bee Ridge Road via downtown, and that information has been shared with Breeze Transit as well. And then again, hearing about non-motorized safety and access on US 41, getting into Oscar Scherer State Park, where there is a connection to the Legacy Trail within the state park. This board has heard about this concern in the past, and so we've included that in the draft TIP document as well. won't go through the projects, but if there are any specific questions about projects in the tip or any questions about the public comments we've received, I'm happy to take them before you consider a vote to adopt.
Any questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion for adoption of the FY 2026 to 2031 Transportation Improvement Plan, including any comments received? Okay. Vice Chair Mast, seconded by Commissioner Sadiq. Any other comments? Hearing none, if show of hands, I will approve. Approved unanimously. Thank you. Moving on, and 7C will also be Joint Transportation Regional Improvement Plan TRIP by Nina Venter.
Thank you. So in the March meeting, we presented a draft of the 2 joint TRIP priority lists. Since the draft was presented to the board, there have been no changes to either of the TRIP lists. So just a quick overview, the TRIP is a funding program established by Florida legislature in 2005, so it is a state funding program. It is an incentive program for local governments and the private sector to incentivize improvements to regionally significant transportation facilities and to benefit regional travel and commerce. It is a 50% non-federal share match program where the local jurisdictions bring the other 50% to the table. When we looked at the 2050 revenue forecast, when we developed the 2050 long-range plan, the Sarasota Manatee area can expect to receive maybe up to $10 million in a 5-year period. So it's not necessarily a substantial funding bucket, but it is really meant to incentivize this regional element to our transportation system. One of the eligibility requirements is that projects have to be included in the MPO's long-range transportation plan, and that emphasizes the regional significance of these projects. So when we developed the 2050 plan, we did coordinate with your staff to make sure that the right projects were included in the long-range plan. We have TRIP priorities with both Polk TPO and Charlotte County Punta Gorda MPO. Our agreements are a little bit different. For Polk County, the rank order is rotated between Polk and Sarasota Manatee. And then with Charlotte County Punta Gorda MPO, the rank order is based on who has received the least TRIP funding since the program was established in 2005. So in the 2026 list, Sarasota County is at the top of the list, followed by either Polk or Charlotte County, and then Manatee County is listed third. Here, this list just includes the Sarasota Manatee projects. The full lists were included in your agenda packet, and this is what the projects look like on a map. So we have 2 intersection projects to help facilitate east-west travel, and then also capacity projects closer to I-75 and east of I-75. So I'll take any questions on those projects.
Questions?
Chair, if I could too.
Yes, sir.
Just briefly on the TRIP funding itself. We've had discussions with FDOT, Wayne, and the group, and the reality is that the TRIP program has lost funding pretty steadily for the last decade, and now looking at potentially even boxing up that down to now about $5 million a year. And holding those funds until the legislature can determine the best use of those funds. So I would say it is a good practice in the sense of identifying regional projects of impact, but the funding source itself is fairly limited in what it can do. So I would preface that with we will continue to work with our partners in both Polk and Charlotte in identifying these projects, but the expectation of those funds until the legislature determines what the future of the TRIP program looks like, I think is something that we need to take into consideration.
Okay, thank you. All right, the chair will entertain a motion for approval of the 2026 Joint TRIP Project Priority List.
So moved.
Commissioner Ron, a second. All right, thank you. And this is just any other discussion? Just say aye if you're for approval.
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved unanimously. Thank you. All right, and then moving on, we'll go to the last action is item 7D, Advancing Organizational Safety Culture. Nicholas Torres.
All right,
Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair. My name is Nick Torres with White House Group. So I'm standing before you today to talk about the wrap-up of the MPO's Advancing Organizational Safety Culture Study. So we already kicked off earlier in the meeting with some topics on safety. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the role of the MPO is in the safety space, and ultimately moving from what we typically talk about as safety actions, which is what are those tangible solutions, to safety culture, which is the how and the who when we operationalize and enable those actions. So while you look at the presentation overview, what I really want to drive home today is what's the role of the MPO? Typically, you'll get questions, you'll have public comment, you may hear back at your own commission, council meetings, what's the MPO doing about safety? Well, the MPO typically doesn't own or operate infrastructure, right? So what can the MPO do from a strategic planning standpoint? That's where we've come in with this study by championing change within the safety space. So the board's role, and what we request of you today and moving forward, is to ask safety outcomes, support funding and policy that has safety as a filter, being a champion for safety accountability, conducting oversight for continuous improvement. So what that means in plain speak is really normalizing it, asking those questions consistently so they become second nature, showing it in the funding decisions, setting the tone. Culture starts with the board and that direction and accountability. And then lastly, providing the framework for oversight. So, like all good transportation projects, we love a good purpose and need. So what was the purpose and need of this study? The MPO was asking itself, where can we integrate our role as an MPO, as an organization, within the framework of culture change? So looking beyond compliance checklists, identifying a need for the MPO to be an industry pioneer in the safety space by aligning internal culture with planning, core products, and partner engagement. And then lastly, moving beyond Destination Zero and providing a clear roadmap for staff, for the MPO, and its daily funding and decision making. So we had three main deliverables for this study. We started off with an initial assessment. I'm going to go briefly through these. A stakeholder workshop, which was back in March. And then lastly, what we're calling the Safety Strategic Improvement Plan, which is the guiding document for staff to continue this effort. So what we found pretty quickly, and starting with the culture assessment, was that the MPO had a very high level place in readiness, essentially meaning the staff, the organization, pre-existing studies, well-positioned the MPO to start to develop the framework for a strong culture from within. There's a strong level of stakeholder engagement in active community groups, and then using safety as a baseline. So if we determine the ultimate success of cultural change defined by safety operating not merely as a policy goal, but as a definitive standard practice in driving all operations, then the MPO should consider safety as a baseline in all its decision making. And then lastly, the MPO has a unique window of opportunity for investment. Whereas other partner agencies are constantly dealing with response, the MPO has the luxury to plan and think ahead. That's the opportunity investment window we found. So moving into the visioning workshop back on March 25th, you see 4 themes here. This was all created through a shared activity, which led us to an overall visioning statement, which is to foster proactive safety culture that guides regional decision-making involving the local community and affirming the shared responsibility that everyone gets home safely. And then some testimonials from groups seeing the presentations and the work over the 6-month study was that staff have been able to effectively communicate this in a digestible manner. So, what's this all lead to? Like I mentioned earlier, the Strategic Safety Improvement Plan provides that cultural framework for staff. It's a guide, not a design manual. But its purpose is to influence policy alignment through best practices and decision making. A framework isn't a timeline, it's a step-by-step guide to gradually changing how the MPO should think as an agency by focusing on building internal habits, that can grow communally over time, rather than expecting an overnight cultural shift. So just because we've put this document together doesn't mean change is going to start happening tomorrow, 6 months, or next year. It may take 10 years. But the MPO has the ability to work with its partners to enact cultural change in the two-county region gradually over time, where it can set in. Providing operational feedback loops, assigning governance and roles, because proactive culture change requires clear ownership. And then lastly, culture isn't an abstract concept. It lives in daily work. So this focuses on making non-negotiable baseline requirements for the major core products and best practice programs. So, where do we go from here? Let's focus on normalizing the behavior. This is where strategy becomes a daily practice and is woven into the fabric of the MPO. We talk about concepts like productive friction, which is simply asking questions and continuing to ask questions if you feel that safety isn't being addressed in a project or a program or at a policy level. Creating consistency by standardizing internal workflows to turn proactive safety into predictable everyday habits for staff. Supporting staff development and training opportunities in the safety space. And then enhancing those partnerships and stakeholder engagement by shifting to early stage collaboration with staff to empower and embed safety into partner projects long before funding decisions come to this board. So for next steps, the plan recommends that we empower MPO staff to begin coordinating safety-related activities, operationalizing the communication strategy that's within the document that provides staff the framework for communicating with elected officials, technical partners, and the public, and then the process integration by embedding those principles into daily operational workflows for staff to proactively and safely make safety the automatic default for agency decisions. Any questions?
Questions? I'll just make a comment before we get to the vote. One of the things we've done in the city of Bradenton is put at some of our major intersections, and most of the people that are traveling through these intersections at peak hour are non-residents of the city of Bradenton and don't necessarily want to be downtown, but we've put a lot of the areas that do not block the box. And I know the state had authorized that through our district director, L.K. Nadam at the time, and we just worked with them because they're repaving some areas, and they were talking about not putting those back. So we reached out to the secretary and Wayne, and they are right now taking them up, and they are going to put them back. And one of the things that I used is the Target Zero, because a lot of that, when Destination Zero, Target Zero came up on this board a couple of years ago, we really didn't, I don't want to say not support it, but we were just a little bit confused, because sometimes if you put out a plan that doesn't seem realistic to people, that they don't even try then. But obviously, all of us believe in the Target Zero from the standpoint of getting to zero. And one of the things that I just want to thank Wayne and Secretary Driggers for coming up with is they saw the importance of how minute do not block the box might be. And the gentleman that we talked to that was in the department said, well, we studied it and nobody's paying attention to it. But you brought up almost every point today that I tried to bring up at the time was, you know, the shift, the idea, and the habits. And if we can get those internal habits for people to start realizing, don't block the box, because if the box is blocked, then the traffic can't go the other way consistently. So I appreciate the state and DOT and the local office working with us to put those back, because we are starting to see a slow shift. And it also then, when we're out trying to educate people, whether it's by officers giving them warnings or tickets, it is starting to. We had one gentleman get 4 tickets in 5 days, so in the same spot. So again, it's going to come to the point, right? But we haven't seen him again now. Now, you know, it's just one of those things. But I think that's where a lot of our cities and counties can see little things that mean to you, and you're part of it, that just like Target Zero. I love the commercial that a gentleman saying, I don't think it's going to work, I don't think it's going to work. And then the 50 people line up behind him that were what's going to happen, and they're 50 members of his family. So it makes you think. And so I think it's a good thing. And I don't know if, Wayne, you have any comments to add on to that, or I just think working together is a good way.
You did a great job explaining the conversation that we had and the partnership that takes place. Safety is obviously something we work very closely with our local partners on. You had a concern, you had an issue, you brought it up, and we're working to get it addressed.
Good, thank you. All right, do I have a motion for approval of the Strategic Safety Improvement Plan? All right, thank you. And a second? All right, Mayor West. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, next is item 8 for presentation. First will be MPO presenters, 8AI MPO study progress updates, MPO planning staff.
Right, so in addition to advancing organizational safety culture, we have several other planning studies and initiatives ongoing. So we wanted to just offer a quick update of where we are on those. One thing that we try to do every few years is to update our prioritization process update. We will be implementing any changes to the process by September of this year, so that the process is updated for the next call for projects for the 2027 list of project priorities. To date, most recently, we completed stakeholder interviews with your jurisdictional staff. These are the people who are actively involved in developing project applications, who are using our web tool, and working closely with MPO staff to get the application submitted and sent over to FDOT. These interviews were very insightful. Really, we wanted to ask what is working well, what is not working well, where are the headaches, where can we make these improvements. So next, we are synthesizing what we've heard, and we are putting together a stakeholder workshop with your staff, which is coming up on May 27th. So our goal is to have a further conversation with them, make recommended improvements to the tool and the process, and then with their approval and their feedback, we will go ahead and implement those changes. And then we'll hang on to our consulting staff with Banesh for a few months to help us just with technical support as we do the call for projects. Any questions on that before we move on?
Questions? Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, moving on to 8B, starting with 8BI,
We
District
still have
1.
a couple left.
Oh,
They got it.
got more in this?
Two more.
Oh, two more on that, okay.
So just,
Moving to staff.
just a quick overview of the regional freight analysis. The phase that we're currently in is kind of looking at understanding freight generators and how freight movement occurs throughout the region alongside stakeholder engagement, which is going to kind of be an ongoing effort throughout the rest of the study. And then once we kind of get a baseline of understanding the how freight movement occurs in the region and sort of that environment, we're going to move on to a mobility analysis, do some modeling, and identify emerging trends and future needs. So just a little bit more about one of our main tasks here with the existing conditions. We're comparing freight network data and assessing completeness, basically bringing in a lot of data from FDOT as well as some of the MPO's own identified freight networks, as well as freight routes from our local jurisdictions. And as part of that, we're also looking at inventorying truck parking, truck rest stops, and all of that, as well as a kind of preliminary movement analysis. Again, seeing how freight is currently moving in the region and then taking that and projecting into the future. And then for freight activity analysis, that's what I mentioned. We're looking at areas where there's a lot of freight activity, where freight's originating, where it's going, where it's passing through. And as part of that, we are identifying new freight activity centers, adjusting boundaries, because we had an existing layer. And since then, there's been a lot of development, as I'm sure you all know. And so we've been adjusting the boundaries for that, as well as comparing it with current and future land use, which is what some of those maps show there, as well as a resiliency assessment. And as I mentioned, stakeholder engagement. We've pretty much finalized our list and our scheduling interviews with both private and public partners to kind of get a sense of really the movers and shakers of freight in the region and identifying their needs as well as concerns, and all of this will better inform every one of those tasks I showed earlier and make sure it's grounded in reality and something that the freight industry and freight folks would find useful. And with that, I can take any questions related to freight.
Questions? Vice Chair Mast?
I don't have a question. Mine is more of a statement. You know, I think the thing that is so critical when it comes to what we do as a board is that we want everybody to arrive alive, right? It's critical to not only our quality of life, but our economic base here is, you're known by historically if it's a safe place to live, work, and play. Having said all that, I think we really need to focus on the fact that, you know, for Manatee and Sarasota County, our port is critical to us, and I do mean critical. It is one of those hidden gems, shall we say, that we really need to make sure that we are emphasizing, supporting, and really making sure that they have everything that they need to be successful. Second of all, I would like to say something that I'm trying to do at every single one of our public meetings and when I'm out in the community is, with hurricane season 2 weeks away, is I tell everybody half is now empty. So when you look at your gas tank, if it's at half, fill it up. Because what it does is then if we are ever in, which we've said we're not going to participate for the next 10 years, in case everybody didn't know. But if you're at half, it helps us to then not have to have the need be so great if we are impacted, which does and then directly have safety issues, people trying to evacuate. So these are all critical conversations that need to be had over and over and over to make sure everyone's safe. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for your comments regarding Seaport Manatee. I'm very fortunate I have two of our Port Authority members also sit on the MPO. We are very focused with our 75,000 trucks that leave Seaport Manatee every year to work with the MPO and with our friends at DOT to figure out our road infrastructure to further enhance the ability to bring more cargo in and out of the port. But I do appreciate your comments, ma'am. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your hard work.
Commissioner Sadiq.
Thank you, Chair. One question. I am kind of curious to see if there's any kind of gap analysis as part of what you're putting together. I go up? Okay. Specifically, I'm trying to determine whether are there areas where freight can't move because of a deficiency in the road network, whether it's it's a functional issue or a capacity issue.
Yeah, that's definitely a major aspect of it. We're looking at connectivity, not only between the different freight activity centers, but to the broader strategic intermodal system. And that's part of the final report, is going to be identifying roadways that the MPO and its partners can prioritize for getting that freight moving.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. One of the things that I think people don't realize with this port, you know, if the closest port would be Tampa, if that port wasn't there. And when you think about it, we saw it in 24 with the hurricanes, more about the flooding part of it than the windstorm with Helene, that it shut off fuel to our local community because of the water table, the water that was up. So that's one of the things. And then another thing that you think about, we have one of our biggest industries that's in the city of Bradenton and Manatee County, kind of all at once, is Tropicana. Well, with everything that's going on in the state, with the not able to get oranges in the state, every bit of juice now comes through the port to get to Tropicana. So if that wasn't there, I don't know if they would try to keep that plant, hundreds of employees employed locally, if they had to bring it from Tampa. It might be too far, and you don't ever see them. That the benefit to that is it's all offloaded. Millions of gallons is offloaded from the port of juice from Brazil, then comes into Tropicana, but they all do it at night, and it's like it just appears. And I don't think people realize how important that port is, and to grow it as much as you can without getting unsafe with the number of trips. But I just want people to hear that so they know why this is important. So, okay, I think.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
Briefly. Yeah, we had a great visit with port staff out there as well, and we emphasized the fact that there are expansion efforts underway, additional berths, additional cranes, all those things that we will be able to help I think from the land side and Nick's perspective on, finding gaps, supporting either Buckeye or 275 or 301, whatever it might be, is identifying that with the state as best we possibly can to anticipate some of that expansion and growth. The port continues to grow year over year, and we need to do our best to make sure the land side operations will continue to be effective. So we will continue to work with the board, obviously, but also port leadership. We've got a great rapport with them as well. So anything you need from us, continue to reach out and let us know. We're happy to make sure that this vital asset is supported.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you. Next.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Megan Louie. As many of you have mentioned about vulnerability, and we are also working on a watershed transportation asset analysis. So this analysis is to build upon the MPO's resiliency and vulnerability work that was done in 23 and 2024. Currently, the study team is wrapping up task 2, which is the data collection, integration, and regional flood modeling. And this task will help establish a data framework for conducting transportation system vulnerability assessment, as well as evacuation scenario planning for various flooding scenarios, like you had mentioned with storm surge or flood inundation. So they are making this flood model, taking in information from all the different jurisdictional partners to kind of make more of a universal language, something that we can look at regionally to ensure that it speaks to all our local jurisdictions. The next task they'll be working on is the transportation asset analysis, taking all that data that they've gathered and vetted and seeing how our infrastructure is actually impacted. To ensure that this study both works for the MPO and our local partners, there were interviews conducted with representatives from 9 different organizations to ensure we're utilizing the best available data that is out there. We also sent out a survey to gather additional information on local experiences with flooding to ensure that the experience with some of those recent storms are captured and integrated into this. And then later this summer, we'll be hosting a workshop with those stakeholders to review what we found and ensure that we've captured everything that's important to them and integrated it so that it is a successful and useful tool for everyone involved. And then the last study that we're working on is the Regional Transit Feasibility Study. This is really looking at the regional transit needs of the community and helping us identify practical actions and strategies, which include funding to support some of the regional transit opportunities that exist in our 2 county regional area. So this study team is currently completing an assessment of the existing transit network, looking at studies done by the MPOs as well as both transit agencies and FDOT, and looking at ridership data and seeing where transit use is higher or lower and where there might be a need. The next step in this study will be defining the regional transit needs. And since transit is such an important part of the community, there will be an opportunity for some public input. Later this summer, we'll be working with our stakeholders of the transit agencies to gather information and make sure that the information we're collecting in this study builds upon the work that they already do in their onboard passenger surveys and transit development plans. And then we'll be launching a survey later in the early fall to get feedback from both riders and non-transit riders to see what their regional transit needs are. And that is the culmination of all the studies that we're working on. Certainly, if you have any questions about any of the studies, feel free to reach out to us. Our intent is just kind of give you a brief snapshot of where we're at with the studies at each of the meetings, and then when we have larger wrap-ups, like the organizational safety culture, to bring you a more comprehensive presentation.
Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, as our Chair Sadiq knows, Manatee County, through our natural resources, is working on a resiliency program and resiliency studies. So I don't know if we can help you guys with that and come up with, especially on flooding, watershed, things like that. So I don't know if that's to help you guys not reinvent the wheel, but give you some information to build a better wheel.
Yeah, no, I would say we are been heavily reliant on both our regional planning councils, on the counties. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're a transportation planning agency. We've heard a lot of requests of how do our transportation assets either help us or hurt us, right? If you're elevating roadways, if you're doing things like that, we want to make sure that we're not having adverse impacts. So yes, we are already utilizing in great conversations with Charlie and the team there as well, having conversations about the work you are already doing. It's the basis of a lot of the transportation models that we're making. Same thing, that effort is to kind of create a universal language of each of these demand models and make it look like we understand how all of them work together. And that is the challenge, right? I think we each look at these things individually. Our job and our role here at the MPO is to make sure that we're looking at them regionally. So yes, we're in contact.
Thank you. All right, next. Now we're ready to move on to FDOT presentation 8B. Thank you, welcome.
Good morning. I'm Keith Robbins. I'm the District Safety Administrator for FDOT here in Southwest Florida. You may recall a little over a year ago, I came and presented to you a presentation on promoting a traffic safety culture. And in that briefing, I mentioned to you that we were working on a safety strategic plan. Well, what we have for you today is culmination of that effort. You each have a copy of the plan. And it is titled Promoting a Traffic Safety Culture, so it builds on what I had already presented to you. On this slide, you'll see on the left is the upcoming new edition of the State Strategic Highway Safety Plan. Our plan is built kind of in fold with that. It follows the same principles and themes. And it also uses the safe system approach by the Federal Highway Administration to ensure that we address all users of our transportation system and all elements of it. So we asked this question, I presented this to you before, what concerns people most when driving? And the constant answer that came back were other drivers. So we see this as a cultural thing. To go on the theme of culture that you already heard this morning, how do we address the users of our system? It's not just an engineering approach, but a cultural approach. These are some statistics that show you the emphasis areas, and I believe there's another chart similar to this in your book there, of all of the emphasis areas that are addressed in the state's strategic plan. We also look in ours, and you can see the fatal and serious injury numbers. Fatals are in the red on the left side of the screen by emphasis area. And the top two are lane departures and intersections, which are traditionally where you see behavior occurring the most that cause those crashes. To look down a little bit closer here in Manatee and Sarasota County, same emphasis areas. What do the numbers look like here in your two counties? In Manatee, 3 of the areas you do fall in the higher realms across the state. In Sarasota, no reds, but still numbers are high, so we want to look at that. And again, building off of traffic safety culture, we know that it should be a national health priority. And if we can't make it a national health priority, maybe we can make it a regional health priority because of the numbers. And so we know the behavior is influenced by beliefs, and all of this, it stems on how people act. How do people act? And what we're looking at here specifically are how people act when they're on the transportation system, be a passenger, an operator, a pedestrian, bicyclist, whatever the case may be. So those are the strategies that we're looking at. And now I'll give you this high-level approach of what we're doing with our plan. It is action-oriented. It looks at near 1, 3, and 5-year goals. I said it uses the safety system approach as a guide. And it is all about forming a safety culture, a traffic safety culture in our district to help us get to these goals. But most importantly, are internal and external collaboration opportunities. I've told your staff already the plan that they presented to you earlier about organizing for a safety culture is a beautiful way of showing this in action. And in this plan, it's not a project-based plan. It is a culture-based plan. There's a little bit of engineering aspects into it, but it's not, we're going to put crosswalks at these locations. We're going to change this intersection. That's not what this kind of plan is. Our work program does that. This is all about advancing a safety culture with the users of the system, strengthening partner engagement, and reinforcing safety successes. So these next 3 slides, it is kind of an eye chart, but the good thing is it's in your book. It shows you all of the things that we're planning to do, both in 1 year and 5-year objectives. If it says ongoing, then we're already doing that to some degree, but we want to keep it going. And then also, if it's some of the things are midterm and long-term, those will take a little bit longer to go. And the chair mentioned how some of these things take a while to take effect. Culture doesn't change overnight. It takes a while to make that. So I appreciate your comments that you said about when you first heard Target Zero and how you feel about it now. That is positive progress. That is exactly what we're hoping to achieve with this plan. This is the only area where it may dive a little bit more into the engineering aspect, where if we see a treatment on the roadway that we have done and it's working, then where can we use that elsewhere? How can we extend that success to other locations? The projects you see on the side there are local projects here in this region, and you can see that the treatments are working. They are having a dramatic impact on reducing fatal and serious injury crashes. So we want to see where can we do that elsewhere. So how are we doing that? This heat bloom map shows you where the majority of our fatal and serious injury crashes are. And currently in our current work program, we've got 65 safety projects totaling over $107 million. That's safety funding on projects. Types of projects are in the gray box there. And you can see at the bottom what our programs are specifically for Sarasota and Manatee counties over the work program. So we are using our safety dollars where we believe they have the most impactful success. Now, what are we doing going forward? Just like with any plan, we'll constantly assess it. We'll constantly update it. We'll see which of these are working. We'll keep those going. Which ones need to be adjusted, we'll modify them to move forward. We may change our objectives and strategies as we go forward. But again, we won't do that without collaborating with our partners. That's how we got here. We did both internal and external workshops. And the constant theme is what you see on the pages before you. So again, we appreciate the work that the MPO staff here has done in their program. That is exactly what we're hoping this to be used for. This document can be used by any organization in our district to do the same thing that your MPO staff is already working towards. So at that point, I'll take any of your questions.
Questions? Commissioner Sadiq, no, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. There we go. No, I love the safety improvements that are happening with DOT. I think, as we're finding in specifically in Manatee County, the infrastructure dollars aren't going as far with, excuse me, capacity improvements, but they're going much further with functional. And if you think about it, the functional improvements are enhancing throughput. With reduced accidents, people aren't jammed up in traffic or intersections with being replaced with roundabouts, more lights. The medians that are being put in are making a difference. We've rolled out, at least locally, a safety website in Manatee County under our CIP page. It's separate for low dollar projects, but the general idea is low dollar being, call it $300,000 or less, but capturing the kind of things that wouldn't make it into a CIP, but are enhancing safety specifically. So we're talking raised crosswalks, roundabouts, raised intersections, that type of thing. So that's one way we're trying to implement safety in Manatee County. But I'm just wanted to chime in and say thank you to FDOT for working on safety improvements, because it is helping it's helping move people faster on our roadways without making the massive and expensive capacity improvements. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner Sadiq. My comment was going to be about, you showed there's a few still red spaces left on Manatee County. Sarasota hasn't, but Sarasota has done a great job, I think, in the roundabouts, which, people still complain about, and the public just has to understand as we put them in. I mean, I don't know that you guys still get the complaints in Sarasota as much, because now you have, 60, 70, 80, whatever it is. Manatee County maybe has 10, and I'm including all the municipalities too. But every project we're doing, especially in the city right now, we're looking at how a roundabout would help that, and that's the important part. But one of the things that I think has been such a great thing in Manatee County is, Commissioner Ron drove this, is Light Up Manatee. even though it's not necessarily a road transportation, but it gets the lights in the areas that are dark that will help road transportation. And some of the areas along 41 corridor, which are some of the unsafe, the most unsafe that we always look at, we're starting to see lights on those now in conjunction with Manatee County, and I think that's a positive thing. I use in the city, don't block the box. As simple as that is, it creates less road rage. It will help as you do those things. I mean, on the road there, you've got drive safe in that picture. Well, anything we can do, that one little thing could make a big difference. So I just think it's important to continue to push that. All the little things add up to big things. And, you know, we talk about destination or target zero. We talked about this originally being a funeral director and having family funeral homes. We see the worst of the worst when that happens there. And I just want people to realize that 1 second, that road rage, that distracted driving. Last Tuesday, my 16-year-old grandson got his driver's license. So you don't think every day we're talking to him. I'm more nervous now than I was when I had my 2 children that turned 16 because, you know, it's your grandson. And everything we do, Vice Chair Mast and I talk about things, and we just showed her a picture of my granddaughter. Everything we do up here is about them and making it safe. So the people that sit out there and criticize us on some of this, sit in our seats and try to make that better, because we do feel responsible for making things better. So thank you for that report.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Anybody else? Nope. Moving on. Moving on. The last presentation today is 8BII Bradenton Palmetto Connector, PD&E, and the FDOT project manager. So we're glad you're here and we're excited.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
For the record, Jimmy Vilse with the District 1. I am the project development manager. With me today, I have Craig Fox with GFT. He's the PD&E consultant project manager. Unfortunately, Michelle couldn't be here. Her daughter is sick, so we told her that, you know, family comes first. She needs to take care of that. So this morning, we're here to give you a brief update on where we are with the Bradenton Palmetto Connector PD&E. As many of you know, we started the PD&E last year. We were down to 3 corridors. Since then, we've had a workshop early this year. I believe it was back in February 2026, where we selected the Corridor A as the preferred alternative moving forward. And as many of you recall, that also comes with a flyover option, which we refer to as the ultimate typical section. So this morning, we're going to give you a brief overview of all the steps we've taken to be where we're at right now. And as far as schedule and cost, what the next steps are going to be. Again, myself, Craig, and Michelle, we're part of the team. A lot of you have seen us from time to time. We've been giving you updates, and we'll continue to give you and the community updates as we move forward with this important project. Again, as part of the agenda today, we're going to talk about how we came about to eliminating corridors B modified, the one that traversed Sanctuary Cove, as many of you remember, as well as the corridor D modified, which is the one that impacted Braden Castle. And we'll emphasize on why corridor A, which is the existing US 41 alignment, makes the most sense as we move forward on this important PD&E project. Craig will be reviewing all the different typical sections with you today, both existing typicals and proposed typical sections north of the bridge, along the bridge, as well as south of the bridge. That way you can see what the different improvements are going to be as part of the PD&E. And then to kind of close the loop, we're going to talk about what the next steps are going to be on this project. I believe I heard the chair mention this morning that, you know, a lot of people that traverse the Palmetto and Bradenton area, they really don't have any intention of stopping here. So you'll see in our discussion today a reminder of what that percentage of through traffic is as you go across the bridge. Many of you may remember back in 2014, there was a analysis that was done. At the time, it was revealed that there's about 30-something% of through traffic that doesn't stop here. Well, that numbers have since improved, grown to a much higher number in the neighborhood of 42 or 43%. And so we need to accommodate for that regional transportation demand. Also, the area is growing. There's a capacity problem that we need to take care of. So that's also one of the purpose and need of this PD&E project. In terms of safety, right now, if somebody breaks down on the bridge, you really have nowhere to go. It doesn't accommodate multimodal transportation either. There's no provision for pedestrian or bicyclists really along the bridge. So we are trying to accommodate all these modes of transportation under the PD&E project. It's also an evacuation route, so we need to make sure that, if that was to happen, that there's room available for us to move the residents when that time comes. So with that said, I will turn it over to Craig so he can discuss the presentation in more detail, and I'll be available to answer any questions from time to time. Craig?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you, everybody, for having us here this morning. So one thing we looked at when we were looking at the corridor analysis, we looked at the detailed traffic analysis that we conducted throughout the region. This is mainly related to those 10 corridors that we're initially looking at, and since then, as Jamie mentioned, we've narrowed it down to one corridor. We also looked at the environmental and social impacts, the costs, of course, and ongoing community outreach. So as Jimmy mentioned, the growth of the pass-through traffic has increased substantially. So there's a lot of information on this image here, but one thing I want to focus on is the 43% circled in yellow. That represents the through trips that are passing through, at least in the northbound direction. And then you look at it, and the next slide shows the southbound direction, and it's basically the same, only off by 1 percentage point. So there is a heavy amount of pass-through traffic, and this is kind of why this alternative that we've come up with can be so effective in reducing the amount of traffic that we have going on, especially the at-grade portion. So this is the overall evaluation matrix. This is the same one that was shown at the workshop in February, so don't expect everybody to read this, but the information is just there. And we also do have some hard copies of the presentation that we can also pass out if you want to look at it in more detail. But it just kind of breaks down the different corridors that we're looking at and the different concerns that come up with each of them. One thing that we also looked at was an 8-lane surface option, and that's shown as the one on the far right yellow one. So that was also included in the analysis. So as a result of both the analysis and also the public input and engagement, we've eliminated corridors B and D, that's the one in blue, and the one in purple to the right. We've also eliminated that 8-lane at grade 1, which would run along the yellow one, corridor A. We've also refined the project limits of corridor A. You'll see on here, it starts on the south end at State Road 70, that has since been revised to start further north. And I'll show you on an upcoming slide. So what we have now to move forward with analysis is corridor A, the revised limits, along with the no build, which is considered throughout the entire process of the study. And then we're aiming to have a public hearing in the summer of 2026. So now I'll review the typical sections, first starting with the no build conditions of corridor A, or formerly known as corridor A. So south of DeSoto Bridge, we're looking at generally a 6-lane typical section. It varies greatly between the south end of the project limits and the north end, but it's generally a 6-lane typical section with sidewalks on both sides of the roadway and a speed limit of 45 miles an hour. Next, we'll move further north to the DeSoto Bridge. This one is a 4-lane bridge with no sidewalks and no bicycle lanes. And you can see it's no shoulders either, so it's very limited in comparison to modern day bridges that the department's constructing. As we travel further north, and sorry, the speed limit is 50 miles an hour along the bridge. As we travel further north, The typical section is generally 4 lanes with 2 lanes in each direction and with intermittent sidewalks. So we don't have sidewalks shown in here because they're really kind of come off and come on. So it's not consistent throughout the whole corridor, again, with a speed limit of 50 miles an hour. Next, we'll move on to the build alternative. And this is where we get to kind of show you how we're mentioning that the project limits have shifted a little bit. So you can see on here, so the previous image, it was shown at start at State Road 70. But now it's going to begin on US 301 at 9th Street East, continuing north across the Manatee River, ending just north of 25th Street East, or there's also that railroad crossing that goes here. But the official project limits ended just north of 25th Street East. So for the build alternative, it's considering south of DeSoto Bridge, we're considering 6 lanes. So it's going to kind of keeping the similar typical section to what you see today with 6 lanes at grade. Continuing sidewalks along both sides of the roadway, but then you have the wider median that's going to accommodate a viaduct with one lane in each direction, and those are going to be managed lanes. There is also the potential to be tolled in the future, but this PD&E study isn't analyzing that toll feature. And the design speed is 45 miles an hour. Next, we'll move further north to the DeSoto Bridge. So the DeSoto Bridge is going to be reconstructed completely and widened. And I do want to note that during the reconstruction of the DeSoto Bridge, it will remain open during that reconstruction. We'll just have phased kind of construction. But it's going to be widened to a 6-lane structure, 3 lanes in each direction, and then you have an additional 2 managed lanes in each direction on that bridge. So we're going to have those elevated lanes. They'll come down at the bridge, and then they'll cross the bridge on the same structure. And we do this so we don't have to build 2 bridges and then maintain 2 bridges. So it's going to be just one wide bridge. So 8 lanes total. And also the very much needed share use pass on both sides of the bridge. And we're also going to reduce the speed limit down to 45 miles an hour design speed. And we also have shoulders too. So it's bringing it up to modern standards with both shoulders on the outside and then on the inside with the managed lanes too. And as you all know, if there's an incident, a crash or a breakdown, now you won't, completely shut down half the capacity of the bridge just by having that happen. You'll be able to move it to the shoulder and traffic will be able to flow through still. Now we're moving further north. So north of DeSoto Bridge, so in this area, we'll be widening from 4 lanes to 6 lanes at grade. We'll also have a share use path on both sides of the roadway, and then the elevated structure will be similar to the elevated structure on the south side with managed lanes, 1 in each direction with shoulders. I do want to note, so south of DeSoto Bridge, we do not have proposed any share use paths there, and that's because the right-of-way is just a lot tighter as you get through the area. The area south of the bridge. So we're looking at having alternate bike routes so we can provide safe patches for cyclists through out that area. Of course, bikes are still legally allowed to ride on the sidewalks, but it's not as convenient and as comfortable as a riding situation. So we're looking at some alternative routes. And next we want to talk about the interim design. So for the interim condition, so because of course that a large elevated structure is going to cost a lot of millions of dollars, and so we're looking at something in the interim that we can do. So look at the interim that we can do to improve the conditions of the area. So in yellow, I want to highlight the interim design, and a lot of you may be aware that we did have a PD&E study that was based on the DeSoto Bridge. Now that one got approved just like last year. But one of the limitations with that study, and the reason why it was limited is because it had federal bridge dollars attached to it, which only allow you to do an in-kind replacement. So the department has been since been working with both our state and federal partners to see what we can do to not only get an in-kind bridge replacement, but also widen that bridge structure so you can have a 6-lane bridge. So we're kind of wrapping that all into this PD&E study now, so we don't have to do 2 additional studies, just do 1 study. That'll take care of them both. So the interim limits are from State Road 64, westbound State Road 64 or Manatee Avenue East, and they continue across the Manatee River, ending just north of 7th Street West. And that's what's shown in yellow. So now I'll review those typical sections. So first, again, starting south of DeSoto Bridge, it'll remain similar to a 6-lane typical section with sidewalks on either side. And then when you look at DeSoto Bridge, it'll be constructed to a 6-lane bridge, 3 lanes northbound, 3 lanes southbound, with the very important shared use paths and the shoulders being added onto it. And one thing I do want to note is that to avoid, reconstructing the bridge twice, because of course we don't want to do that, this bridge will be built so it can be widened in the future to accommodate additional lanes without driving any additional piers into the Manatee River. So it's a very efficient design that can be easily expanded in the future to accommodate the ultimate typical section. And the speed limit will be, design speed is, again, 45 miles an hour. North of DeSoto Bridge, it'll be widened to 6 lanes, and we'll be able to add the share use paths on both sides of the roadway. So some very good bike ped improvements with this interim project too. So when we look at funding, the PD&E phase is funded for fiscal year 2024. The design is partially funded, and right-of-way and construction are not yet funded. That's to be determined, but the department is working hard with both the state and federal partners to get funding for that. So this is where we are in the study schedule. We are in the we're in the second quarter of 2026 right now, and we're looking to have that public hearing within that second quarter of 2026. So you'll have notifications about that come out very recently. And then we also have LDCA, that stands for Location Design Concept Acceptance. We like, acronyms here at FDOT. So this basically is a study approval that's anticipated to happen at the fourth quarter of 2026. So the next steps will be finalizing the environmental study, continue to refine the concepts as we get, hear feedback from the public. One thing that will be at the public hearing that wasn't shown at the workshop are the pond locations. So we're anticipating some decent community feedback on that. Also, continue to receive input from local agencies, work with the environmental agencies, and like I mentioned, prepping for the public hearing that's going to happen this quarter. All right, so I'll pass it back to Jimmy to wrap it up.
Thanks, Craig. So like Craig said, we are scheduled to have a public hearing this June, which is one of the most crucial steps in getting that LDCA approval from OEM. And as part of that, we need to have planning consistency. I'm sure that's a term all of you are familiar with, which means that we need to show that the next phase of this project is funded, which is, that's the reason why we came up with the interim, having identified an opportunity to streamline the bridge replacement project with this capacity project within those same limits, because one, it's being designed by the same engineering firm, which is GFT, so allowing them to widen, upgrade US 41 from say Route 64 to north of 7th Street West would come with a reasonable increase, as opposed to if you were to start from scratch by soliciting a new consultant. That would be a lot more expensive. And we also, want to take advantage of that to partner with the elected officials and see how we can get this project to the finish line. If not the ultimate, at least, the interim, to provide some sort of relief, a much needed relief to this area. And as we move forward, we can all decide as a community how we want to fund the, flyover section as it is going to be very expensive. I mean, we've all heard about the Gandy Boulevard, which again, I keep reminding folks at the time, it was only a 2 or 2.5 miles project. It was in the neighborhood of $250 million, and that was like 8 to 10 years ago. So you can imagine how much more expensive a project of this magnitude is gonna be. So we're here to partner with you all and work with you all to help you deliver this much needed project for the community. Again, my contact information is shown on the screen, so is Michelle's contact. I believe this QR code will take you to the project website. With that said, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, and a great presentation. Obviously, it means to all of us is very important, but especially to the Manatee County commission, the city of Bradenton, and city of Palmetto, because this has been something that's been going on for probably 40-plus years, that things got killed in the 90s and earlier because of political wherewithal or political controversy, whatever you want to say. But I know you say 42 to 43%. We think it's closer to 60%, so let's just go in the middle and say 50% to divide it in there. But anytime that you can move 42 to 50% of the traffic off of your roadway, and our biggest problem through the city of Bradenton, which all of this is in the city of Bradenton and then reaches over to Palmetto, though it's the cause in the city of Bradenton of what it is. And if we can get about 40+% up, which is regional traffic, because they don't want to stop in Palmetto, Bradenton, or Manatee County, they want to get onto 301 and go south, which is good, but anytime we could get 40% up, that means our east and west traffic will move 40+% quicker. And we have people complaining about, well, if I drive there and there's no traffic, it takes me 20, 25 minutes. If I drive during traffic, it takes me 45 to an hour. Well, in reality, at a rush hour, that's not a big difference in a rush hour. But if all of a sudden we have 40+% of that traffic up on an elevated thoroughfare, remember that word, elevated thoroughfare, because that other word is what people don't like. So anyway, I was told that early on because I've been going to these meetings since 2014 when I got on the council, and I'd always before in life being there. But one of the things that working with the state, working with Secretary Perdue, Driggers, and Wayne, and all the staff, is people don't want to hear that T word, the toll, because they're nervous about local traffic. But if this is 40+% regional traffic, they don't mind paying a small toll to get up and not have to sit at traffic lights. So we know, in dealing with all of this, if we can get that toll road and we can agree as a community, and the community is Manatee County, City of Palmetto, and City of Bradenton collaborating together, that this can get this project going a lot quicker. And that's one thing we've been dealing with the secretaries and the local staff. So I think that's important that we get ahead of that, explain it correctly, that most of us that live there, if the traffic's moving almost 50% quicker, we're never going to get up there. So the traffic that is going north and south, in the morning south, at the night north, let's figure that out. The public hearing in February, I think, made a lot of people happy that we anticipated how that would go, because we started with 10, and some of them were going through cemeteries and other neighborhoods and all of that, and then you knew that was going to par down, and we were pretty confident that this is what the study would show, and it did. So thank you to DOT, thank you to the local elected officials that were really positive in working with the communities. And now we have one community that we have to work through, is that Corridor A, and explain to them how. Now, the biggest question is, and when you build things, do you build them for expansion? We're building the bridge for expansion, but are we building this elevated thoroughfare, single lanes? Will it be available to expand if we have to go to 2 lanes? Or is that something that, we've got to be, people look back and say, why did they do that? What happened here? And I think most of us up here are planning for the future. So will that be available to expand it to 2 lanes someday? I know that's a tough question right now, and it's, but I think the public needs to hear, if we end up going forward with 1 lane, why? And if 2 lanes we all know it's about right of way, and size matters for that. Wayne, do you have anything towards that?
Chairs, we're moving through this process. I believe as we get to the LDCA, that sounds like an excellent comment to bring in for any of the public hearings that we have for discussions. But from the presentation that you were able to take a look at, you've been able to see the plans that we have in place right now. That does represent a significant amount of feedback that's come not only from this board, but from prior meetings out. We'll definitely have Jimmy go by, take a quick look at that, and then we'll be able to feed back some information to you guys.
And obviously, we know structures and concrete and everything else, and I don't want it to get killed because of that, but we got to be able to explain why. And I think that's one of the biggest things. And before I move on, and I won't talk anymore about it, but I do want to thank Secretary Perdue, Secretary Driggers, and staff going down, because they're already looking at a possibility of a piece of property that will help with this, because you have to have the stormwater, you have to have all the laydown lots and all that. And sometimes opportunity is now, and if you wait, it's not there anymore. So there is some processes going through right now to set this project up to succeed, instead of, we can always find out why not, but let's set it up to succeed. Commissioner Ron.
Mr. Chair, if I could add very briefly to what Wayne mentioned, we do have a dedicated group that does what we call a tolling analysis. So once that group gets on board and starts looking at the feasibility of collecting revenue through this corridor, we can certainly present the idea of widening this elevated thoroughfare to accommodate additional lanes, and get their feedback as far as like whether or not they think this would help us in generating more revenues, which would then solidify, the need, improve those improvements that we are giving the public. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We all know that money is the answer. What was the question? And with the chair's question on tolling, what we see with the Selman Expressway and places like that, with people just, I mean, it's almost an automatic when you travel that to get to downtown Tampa or whatever. I just don't want us to make the mistake of like what happened in Manatee County with the Fort Hamer Bridge, where we're now looking at having to build another span, and it's going to be hundreds of $1 million more than it would have been if we had done it back then. So with going to 2 lanes, the tolling is bondable, and you can collect off of future tolls bonding, which I believe would help with the funding of this 2 lanes. I just don't want to see us get caught 5-10 years from now. Well, it's going to take that long to build this probably, but when that happens, we now have more and more traffic going to use this expressway, elevated expressway, and now we have the same problem again. We got traffic backing up on the expressway because we went to 1 lane. So I would really encourage, if we can, look at alternative funding mechanisms to build this to a 2 lane rather than to start with 1 lane, because once we have 1 lane, we're not going to build another lane. I mean, it's going to be impossible. So if you look what they did in Hillsborough County with the Selman, they just went out, I know it's hundreds of millions of dollars, but at least they went out and did it. And now people are appreciating the fact that how fast traffic flows through that, even with the express lanes on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think something to that as well, is there an alternative maybe for 3 lanes, or some of the Leroy Selman is that, where you have that lane that goes south in the morning and it changes to north. So you could have 2 lanes. So maybe I know you guys would look at all that, and I think that's where the public that listens to us and then a lot of times criticizes when a project comes up and is done. It's still great for the time, but normally when it takes 10 years to build, it's already outdated. And so I think the tolling, once it was explained to me and understood it, working with the state, it is something. And being a local resident, if I want to get from north to south or south to north and I don't want to get in the minutia, then I might be willing to pay that, but you don't have to. That was the biggest thing a couple of years ago when they talked about tolling it, was the community went crazy, but they thought everybody would have to pay toll. No, it's only the people that choose to use it. And when you're almost 50% that's going to choose to use it, then you got 50% quicker the other way. So that's what we have to continue to get out there. So Commissioner Sadiq, yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. More for FDOT's awareness, but for the public too, the +1 on tolling and other revenues. But we're going through a comprehensive planning exercise now as a Manatee County board, and then I'm sure there'll be more frequent updates in the future. But one of the trends that I see, particularly in my district, which covers the bridge, well, a little bit west of the bridge, is we have a lot of growth in the parish area, northeast corner of the county, north corner of the county. Palmetto is working on redevelopment. I talked to my counterparts in Hillsborough County. Their southern portion, our northern, is growing pretty fast too. So when something happens on 75, when, not if, then the other roads become the backup. General trend I'm seeing is beyond residential, more commercial. And so this is going to become a key, bless you, commercial or arterial enabler, if you will, for commerce, as we also as a board encourage more, call it commercial or high industrial and higher density development in and around this particular area. So the importance of having an elevated thoroughfare, while yes expensive, is critical, because we'll need to be able to separate the commercial from non-commercial, need to allow for more traffic to come through, because it's going to come through there. And then of course, not to mention the proximity to Seaport Manatee. So that's another dimension to add in there. So in short, we're going to see a lot of growth. We're already seeing trends where people in parish, particularly in parish work in the city of Bradenton, Palmetto, there are police officers, nurses, restaurant workers, because those opportunities are not quite available there. So this project is an enabler for those people to come down to facilitate commerce, promote economic development. So it is important that we get the capacity side right. Granted, it's expensive, but just to give you some feedback on where the county's growing, what kind of growth, commercial, residential, and just the importance today. So that 40-50%, I know 42%, I know you looked in the immediate areas of the bridge, but I wager it's probably a lot higher than that, closer to really what the mayor was saying. So that's all I had.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Siddiq. And one last thing, then I'll go to Ryan. I think that what you said, Commissioner Siddiq, is so true, that when you look at, we've gone from 30-some up to the mid-40s, and it's only going to get more because of the downtown development and growth that we're going to do, to where we want people to come in, but we also want people to live downtown. So I think there'll be more opportunities for businesses and people to get in, but this just gets that, what doesn't want to be there, off of that roadway, and that's important. Ryan Brown.
Just to add to that, and a lot of great discussion, and while expensive, I would make a counterpoint that it's not an unheard of investment, right? So you look at some of our other neighboring counties, you look at the investment in Gandy, you look at the now managed lanes in through Pinellas County, is nearing $500 million. Expensive, but not unfeasible, I think, given the resources available. Also looking at the bridge improvement program from the federal side that addresses aging, and there are potentials for aging facilities. There are potentials for other investment into this. Obviously, it's a state facility, going to need a large amount of state resources to accomplish that. But I would say not out of the question in terms of investment made on other similar facilities throughout the state and in our nearby region. So encouraging, and I will say, yeah, it's a very important time here when it comes to public outreach and feedback, making sure that we remain consistent with our messaging to the community, and really speaking on the fact of that this is something that can help address that regional nature. It is a major commercial corridor, and one that will continue to be so. So the MPO is here to support that. If you need anything from us in terms of messaging, in terms of outreach, we're certainly here to help.
Thank you. Any other questions? Great job, guys. We appreciate it, and we appreciate all that you did at the February meeting, because I think that, had a lot of residents. It's one of the best attended meetings that I've been at, but the residents got the information they needed, and obviously if it wasn't through their neighborhood, they were happy, but I think this part of it sets it up for success. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, and we hope to see you in June for the public hearing.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I think last we have member comments. Is anything else, Ryan, before we go to member comments?
Nothing else from me.
Just start to my left if there's anything. Seeing anything? To my right? Seeing none. Final comment by the chair is, I do want to say why Sarasota City is not here. This is that one meeting a year that's kind of messed up because of conflict, messed up with the conflict of the Memorial Day, the holiday coming up. So this is when they have their meeting. We had to switch it. Ryan's going to look at for next year and really try to make it possible that, we'll work around that a little bit more. And so I just want to
Yeah.
say they're not here because they don't want to be. They're here because they have their own city council meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something we're going to look at. We're, Kelly and myself, staff, we're going to start working through next year's calendar here. We're hard to believe we're almost halfway through this year. So we'll start looking at next year's calendar. It could be potential to potentially move this into the early parts of June, obviously dependent on all of your schedules, but it has been fairly consistent that we've had a conflict with the second Monday of each May. So we'll look at calendars to see if we can kind of sort that out and make sure it works with everyone across the board. So.
All right, and then the last thing, I just want to say that, obviously, the meeting's about 2 hours, but when I was chair the time before, we switched the MCAT and the Breeze, instead of having that 8:30 meeting and then coming here at 9:30, we brought that in with it, and I think that's been beneficial, and I like it. So, we are able to hear it because most members weren't able to get there by 8:30, but we started at 9, so a good move on the MPO's part and working through it. And also, I appreciate all the timing of everything. Sure. And some of it you'll see the minutes, just because all of us if we can get out of here within 2 hours, we're doing a good job.
That's the goal.
So thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Anything else by anybody? Hearing none, we'll be adjourned. Thank you.